You're listening to Consolidate That. Ukraine is my motherland. It is now under a savage attack by Russia. Ukraine is shielding Europe and the rest of the civilized world from Putin's barbaric aggression. Ukrainians are brave and effectively fighting back. Let's help. Make a donation to Armed Forces of Ukraine. Link is in the show notes. Hashtag Stand with Ukraine.
Welcome back to Consolidate That. We've got a fun episode today, what I like to call a Ryan and Ivan exclusive, which is what we call it when we don't have a guest. So, Ivan, good to see you. I know you've got some topics to hit on. We've got some cool things to break down about the WVC conference, but I'll hand it to you.
Yeah, that's really cool. I'm excited to hear your experience at Western Conference. But before we start, I would like to do a shout out to all our Ukrainian employees as well as to the whole country of Ukraine. Today is the 1 year since the barbaric war initiated by Russia started. It was last year, February 24th. Well, it actually technically was February 23rd when I saw the first missile hit Kiev. And I called, folks on our team, telling them that it started. So I just want to do a shout out to all the brave people of Ukraine, American people that are helping us with the weapons to fight against, and the whole world standing up together. Last night, United Nations voted at 130 something countries supporting Ukraine against, I think, 5 or 7 countries that supported Russia. So yeah, that's kind of, I wanted to mention that. But actually, one more thing about the Western. It's interesting that when I was building SmartFlow, I remember the first conference we went to where I met EasyVet guys. Well, actually, CEO, there was no guys, there was just Headley. And I was talking to my co-founder Pavel. He was writing code sitting right where the first shooting was in Kiev during the revolution, and he was basically right next to it, and he was writing code for SmartFlow. Unfortunately, it seems like every big startup I start, it starts with the war. So hopefully, I'm not gonna do any
Hopefully,
more
I
startups.
think we should make Galaxy Vet successful, and then you ride off into the sunset, and we'll have world peace.
Right. Well, yes, I think that's required. But Ryan, so how was Western? What did you hear? Who did you
Yeah.
meet? What was exciting? What is different, or is it the same
Well,
show as every year?
no, it was very cool. And one thing to add on to what you said there, I do want to thank everyone that I came across and met with at the show. A lot of people sent their, well wishes, and their, asked about how our team was. That was, the first question that a lot of people asked. So, um, it does mean a lot to everyone at Galaxy Vets that people, you know that we've got a team that's fighting on two fronts, fighting burnout and fighting a war at the same time. So it's pretty amazing to see. But yeah, the show was really awesome. It was very large. I'm waiting to hear what the numbers were like. I know WVC is always the second big show of the year. VMX was the largest it had ever been. So I'm looking forward to hearing what these numbers come out as. Super packed, lots of new technology companies that came out. I met some really cool, interesting people, and tried to introduce some people to each other to do that as well. But my primary goal while I was out there was to just get a pulse on what's going on with the industry. We did an episode at the kickoff for this season with Fritz Berger, and talked with Fritz about what to expect and his crystal ball into 2023. And it seems like there's a reason why he's such a successful investment banker, because that's what we're seeing out there. So I met with a lot of different brokerage groups. I met with other folks and friends of ours across the industry, and found that there's definitely a consistent retraction in the multiples that people are paying for practices, and also the unique characteristics that people are looking for. So it felt somewhat vindicating. I won't lie that I had a bit of a smile on my face, because when Galaxy Vets first came out and we were consistent with our idea of long-term strategy and wanting to participate with people to build a sustainable business, it's definitely something that a lot of the groups are now realizing is something that's needed. So, thanks to all the different brokerage groups that I met with, and I think we found that multi-doctor practices, from what we see, are going in the 8 to 11 times multiple. A couple people mentioned a 12 that might sneak through there, but that seemed like it was more for smaller platforms. Some doctors that had 3 or 4 practices with multiple doctors in them and some unifying piece. I think that was the big difference. There's multiple practices with one owner, but I think they needed to have some unifying, whether it was a telemedicine approach that tied those practices together, or a central call piece, or a buying power that they brought in. So that was very, very interesting to see that I think we're in a spot there where the market has regained its mind a little bit and set itself up to be able to buy practices in a spot where we can continue to grow them.
So that's consistent with sort of what the investment community is talking about. So I spent quite a lot of time with the investors, and again, Fritz was right. You know, his crystal ball is working, and it sounds like an interesting time where there's a bit of a holding pattern right now, and people are looking to invest into platforms that are really focusing on organic growth. So the M&A game is gone. I mean, there's still arbitrage present, but there's no anymore come in, buy hundreds of hospitals and resell. That's not interesting anymore. And some solid organic growth strategy, which we've seen when we worked with the consolidators 2 years ago and 3 years ago. That was a pretty weak side of most consolidators. They did have a slide, if you will, on this, but there was no solid strategy behind each growth lever. There was just a vague, oh, we're going to increase marketing, we're going to improve efficiency, we're going to use technology, and it was really the extent of it. So it seems like they're really now drilling down on, well, what exactly do you do? Well, how do you do marketing? What technology? How is it connected? Is there integration? So there's all these good questions that Ryan, you and I had when we were helping consolidators to develop their technology stack and things like that. So now it's definitely important to investors. And also, I think that it's a very unique window of opportunity right now for anybody who's starting a group, because the investment community is looking into investing into these organic growth. But at the same time, like you said, the multiples are dropping. So it is an attractive opportunity in larger platforms that were levered significantly towards this year and towards this sort of pre-recession kind of time. It looks like a lot of those platforms are not going to recap, or they didn't last year, and now they're looking into, because of the interest rates that doubled, now they're looking how to save their overhead and not trip any covenant in their debt agreements. And from what I understand, there's significant layoffs all across the industry. Ryan, did you hear any of the rumors like that? And if yes, what sort of positions are being eliminated at the
Yeah,
moment?
yeah. So I guess I was walking around with a bit of a target on my back, because it seems like a lot of the BD teams across the industry have been significantly reduced because the number of acquisitions has significantly reduced. And as much as I love the BD world, we do become pretty redundant if you just have us sitting around. So there was a good number of BD teams that I've heard about shrinking significantly, and pauses on acquisitions completely by some of the larger groups. And then I know there was also, I know, Ivan, you had heard some talks about some of the other teams outside the BD world too, right?
Yeah, well, that's what I'm hearing. That cascading effect from that. If you're not buying practices, you don't need BD. Therefore, the whole M&A team is shrinking, and then there's nothing to integrate. So I heard a couple large consolidators actually let go of their integration teams, which, as we are building Galaxy, this is, it's a significant undertaking to develop the process, train people on it, have, everybody trained. Into integration is one of the hardest things, and if you don't do it right, this is where the whole relationship breaks. And it sounds like large consolidators are letting go their integration teams. So For those that are building platforms now, there's talent available with a significant background, and I definitely looking forward to exploit that opportunity, as long as we don't trip any non competes and stuff like that. On the other hand, I think it's pretty bad that as a as a business leader, I know that it's so hard to develop those processes, and then when you lose people with all that knowledge, it's really damaging to the business. And then is it going to revert back to acquisition mode? I don't know if you're getting those people back to work for you. So it's a pretty interesting times, I would call it, and definitely a window of opportunity. You can take this situation and definitely see where the opportunity strikes through. The challenges, as long as you're coming in at the right time with the right thesis.
Yeah, it kind of makes me think. I know we talk a lot about traction and traction methodology, and this might be a bit of a tangent, but it's tough because a lot of these groups that I think are losing their integrations teams or laying them off are also some of the same places that really could use those extra hands in the practice to improve what the dynamic is between the corporate group that owns them as well as the people that are doing the work. And when you think of traction, it's not the idea of you know well, we hired someone for this specific job. They didn't work out for this, so they need to be gone. It's more so finding them the right spot. So I hope that prior to any layoffs, people are looking around and saying, "Hey, Tom and Jane here are fantastic, and they know our business and they know what we can do, and let's see if they can help improve what's happening within the practices and that outreach." So I think there are a lot of spaces still for growth within the practice and organic growth within the practices, and so that seems like something that's an opportunity.
Yeah, I like that you mentioned traction. So we're true believers in that methodology, and there's a couple consolidators that I know of, starting with some of the largest ones today, and the younger ones. And it seems like traction is one of those methodologies that people can and want to adopt. We definitely swear by it, and our whole methodology is based on traction. And then there's other additions to it, including employee ownership, or as we now look at the new methodology that helps us with that, which is called Great Game of Business, which is essentially about that open book management and the employee ownership, and basically letting everybody understand how the economics work. But with that, because there's other groups right now that are implementing traction, there's a pool of talent with transferable skills, because if they were using traction methodology elsewhere, there's a pool of talent that right now is available. So again, maybe the times are the lemon, but there's a lemonade that could be made out of it.
Yeah, the I think the other part of the show that I found interesting, first off, if you've ever, for anyone listening, if you've ever worked with or for Ivan and you go to a show, the first question everyone asks you is, "Where's Ivan?" Which you get pretty tired. I think next year, if I go without you, Ivan, I'm gonna wear a shirt that says "Ivan's at home, leave me alone." But um,
The QR code to find Ivan.
QR
And the
code
QR
with
code
your
is
Zoom
a
link, and
find
I'll just have
me,
you sit
and
there.
he'll be connected to my tag, the Apple
Yeah.
tag, where I'm at.
Yeah, so no, Ivan was not there. You did not miss him. But if you saw me, you got what I think is the absolute best possible alternative. But it was kind of interesting. A lot of the people that we met with, I went to a few. There's always the sort of the hosted parties that the different companies have, and the reason I mentioned Ivan wasn't there is we didn't do a booth. We went with me going. A couple other people on our team went and were doing CE and things like that, which was awesome. Um, but it's kind of an interesting shift, I think, in the marketing aspect as well. That's kind of the thing I'm going to be interested to see over the next few years. Uh, Exhibiting at these shows is a massive financial and time undertaking. And just for me to go by myself was a massive time undertaking, especially when your flight gets canceled and then it adds an extra day. And those meetings you want that next day are canceled. So I met with a few folks that were hosting events and parties and things like that. And they said, this is where I see the real ROI on being here. And the booth sometimes may feel like a required ticket to not upset the status quo. And so I thought that was kind of an interesting idea. There's massive, massive stuff. The company Anyvive or Envive, which had Rob Gronkowski come and do a special appearance, and they had a mechanical bull, and I can only imagine what they were spending making custom cowboy hats and everything like that throughout the entire show. But I'm curious what some of the ROI of these groups are, and what we'll see as the shows continue. The attendance are continuing to grow, but I wonder if that the ROI for the marketing teams is there right now. So that was one thing that I'm curious about too.
Well, definitely depending on, I'm used to going to conferences as smart flow. So therefore we were a vendor. And then you don't have anybody else stopping by your booth, but your prospect customers. And well, you do have a, large quantity of people collecting pens and pins and and
And credit
doing
card
that.
processors. Don't forget, there's always a good
Yeah,
selection of credit card processors.
right. But when you are a group or a consolidator, I think you becoming such a target for vendors, then it's not worth going there and having a booth because you're essentially paying an enormous amount of money to be targeted by every vendor on the planet. So I think that this guerrilla marketing approach is probably better. And I think that you were very successful doing that. But I want to go back to your experience with the technology. You said there's a bunch of new technology.
Mhm.
And is there anything that you wanted to highlight that you've seen that was interesting?
Well, Sean, who you know very well, Sean Wilkie with Talkatoo,
Who's Sean?
was he's this other Canadian guy that loves to
Oh, I
talk.
know
So
the other
you would get
Canadian guy.
along
Okay, I
well
know
with
who you're
him, yeah.
talking about.
So he's Sean, for anyone that doesn't listen to Ivan's other podcast, co-host VIP with Ivan, but Sean is the CEO and founder of Talkatoo, and they came out with a new product line called Verify, which allows you to just talk in the exam room, and then they have a team that actually transcribes your notes and does the soap notes and everything like that, so that the doctors can doctor and the notes can note themselves. And so that was really cool. Coming from a PIMS space, I always like to just keep up to date on what's going on with the PIMS. There was significant talk around the growth that Shepherd is doing, which
Oh, interesting.
was really cool. I had a chance to meet Dr. Cindy, who is the founder of Shepherd, and she was really wonderful. Then there's a new PIMS, which always is fun, called Nectar Vet. And Joanna, who's the CEO there, she was super smart. Seems like she has a really cool team. They're just breaking onto the market. They just came out in November. So I really enjoyed chatting with her, and just it was not long ago. I'm fairly new still in the veterinary industry. And so it was not long ago where I was standing in a booth going, who are all these people? So I get, I enjoy meeting new people that are coming into the vet space because it's such a unique environment. And then I think there's a lot of telemedicine that's being adopted. I think a lot of people are really, we thought COVID was going to get us there, but I think there's been an increase of adoption of the desire to do telemedicine.
So telemedicine is a good segue to we on VIP podcast. We just interviewed yesterday another vendor, another group, which I thought was interesting. It's now a consistent sort of theme and experience. They're called Doctor Treat, and very similar platform as Modern Animal, very similar to Bond Vet, Small Door. Now these guys, we're doing a similar thing with a combination of telehealth and brick and mortar. I think this is the future of veterinary medicine. I think we're breaking through the mold of the old school visit the clinic and have to be there physically to pay your fees subscription model as well. Interesting how they come up with the sustainability of that, similar to our experience. So basically when you're on subscription you will be paying a monthly fee, but all your exam fees are waived. So very interesting how they will develop, and I think that this is a new thing. I think this is that organic growth and an extra revenue stream on a SaaS based model is what is going to change this industry. And I think it will create the scalability. It will allow veterinarians to have the choice of practicing remotely or in the clinic, or the combination of thereof. So it was very interesting. I think that it wasn't COVID, but it was an innovation that brought it in. Maybe COVID pushed it slightly, but I was,
I think COVID probably got money to go into some of these telehealth platforms, which allowed the technology to get to the point where it needed to be. And then also, I mean, how difficult was it to get someone on a video call 3 years ago, or I guess four
oh
years
man,
ago? And
it
now
was
it's
like, yeah.
now,
I,
mom, if you're listening, we can talk on the phone. We don't have to video every time. It's
yeah,
like,
or fly to New York to have a 1 hour meeting. No.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So it was cool. Yeah, I think there's a lot of great things that are coming out. I'm looking forward to, you know, continuing to develop some of the new relationships with folks that I met, and I think it's going to be a great thing to do. And for everyone that was there, it was wonderful to see everyone and meet everyone. I'll wrangle Ivan next time so that you guys can see the real, the real sizzle that you came to see. But it was a great show, and I really appreciate everyone for hosting me and having me, and the different times that we did there.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for the update, Ryan. That was very good, and I'm looking forward to attending the next one with you.
Perfect. Thank you so much for listening to Consolidate That. If you want to hear our new episodes, please find us on any podcast platform. Also, you can learn more about us on our website at galaxyvets.com.